Greetings, everyone, and it is Friday. How are you? What is going on with you, Mr. Murray? I see
Hey,
you with us today.
I'm doing great. Yes, I made it. I made it. And I should be here almost every Friday. I'm trying to work my schedule so I be back with y'all on a regular basis. But it's so good, so good. My name is Anthony Murray. I am one of the hosts here. I see we have some great guests that's going to be with us today. Tell you a little bit about myself. I'm in the financial services, been in and out of the financial services since 1981. Worked with different companies like Mutual of Omaha, Edward Jones, and some mom and pop organization out of Atlanta. And now I'm with World Financial Group, who's owned by Transamerica, who's owned by Aegon. All right. And I probably, if not the first, I think somewhere around there, first or second black-owned insurance company in Effingham County, so Georgia. So I'm really excited about that, and the first one here in the little old city of Rankin, and I am fired up about what we have going on here and what's going on with Financial Sense. A lot of great things. So I want to encourage our listeners to contact your friends, your neighbors, your enemies, your cousins, your aunts, your uncles, the in-laws, the outlaws, all of them, because you don't want to miss this topic today. Tanya, back to you, girl. You're looking good.
Thank you. Thank you. I am Tanya Scott Pilcher, your insurance professor. And if you're interested in establishing a new career in a $1 trillion industry so that you can
$1 trillion.
live your dreams,
Is
then
that with a T, capital T?
that is with a capital T.
Capital T, I like it.
Through our training and preparation for the insurance exam, we can help you get there. This is a multi-billion-dollar industry. I call it a $1 trillion industry, but people are making millions of dollars being in the financial industry. And we want you to come on in because this is a business that really allows you to help people. And that's what we do here on Financial Sins. We are providing you information so that you can do your finances a little better. And sometimes we don't even realize that we're in trouble. But as African Americans, we have certain struggles that other people don't. And so today we are going to be talking with two, maybe even three people that's going to bring some interesting information that maybe you didn't know what was going on in your community, but or understanding what your real struggles are, and especially in getting loans and
Right.
also establishing capital in your business. And so
Mhm.
today we're going to be talking about that. Now, Anthony, I know you have heard of food deserts, right?
I have.
Yeah. And so we have been talking about fresh fruits and vegetables being available to certain parts of our community and that it's lacking, especially in that area off of Bay Street going into the Garden City area and how far they have to travel. But did you realize that there is something called banking deserts? And that
No.
is what we're going to be talking about today.
Banking deserts. I was wondering what that was all about. I've not heard of that. I'm not that familiar with it. And well, not that I'm not that familiar with it. I'm not familiar with it at all. I'm not, period. All right. So this is going to be very interesting. I'm really anxious to learn about it. So, folks, I really encourage you, contact your people. Contact the people. Let's get everybody here. Let's get them here. All right, we have with us Dr. Richie Keys and State Representative Sandra Scott. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Scott's the last name here. Is this a setup? Is there a relationship here?
Not that we know of as of yet. We haven't gone down the family tree, but
Okay.
State Representative Sandra Scott has been doing some amazing work in Georgia for many years. And she is here and she'll be introducing to us Dr. Ricky Keys. Representative
Wonderful.
Scott, how are you today?
I'm great. I am great, Miss Pilcher. I am doing great. And hi, Anthony. Um, I don't know. My husband is from Arkansas, the town of Camden, Arkansas. That's where I get the name of Scott from. I am originally from Tallahassee, Florida, um, with the name of Givens. I am a Givens. I married into a Scott in the military.
Uh-oh.
24 years in the military. My husband did. And so that is how I got the name of Scott. But I have been a Georgia state representative for 12 years. So I
Wow.
have been out here playing in this field for a while. Um, and it's always about the truth, coming out and trying to enlighten and keep our citizens informed on what is happening in Georgia. And I could tell you that I met a man named Ricky Key some 12 years ago when I joined the General Assembly, and he had been talking about finances ever since I met him. He had big digging through and looking at data for a long time. I could tell you it was only about 7 years ago he came up with a financial plan for us in the Black Caucus, is where he made postcards and told us to go out into our districts and tell the people about the financial market and what was going on dealing with money here in the state of Georgia. And I could say, did we listen? No, we did not listen to him fully. Some of us took it and went out and shared it with our communities, and some of us did not. But now he's back. He's back and he's doing an awesome job. And he have a team of women that is ready to get this thing going, ready to get it started, and giving us a new sense of help when it comes to our financial markets and just what can we look to obtain in our communities by dealing with the banking deserts that we have in our communities. I heard Mr. Murray say, "Oh, he haven't heard of banking desert." Well, Mr. Murray, let me tell you that we have banking deserts and we have a lot of them all throughout Georgia. And we talking about looking at the zip codes to identify the banking deserts. We're not talking about race here. because it's not always about race, but when we talk about the zip codes, we know that all citizens of Georgia are affected when it comes to zip codes. And we have banking deserts throughout Georgia and across the world. But we're just dealing with Chatham County banking deserts today. And Dr. Ricky Keys is going to tell you all about the banking deserts, where you can see and how they go about. So I'm going to let Dr. Keys come on in and talk to you all about the banking deserts, and then I will come back on. Where you can see.
Representative Scott, I really appreciate you. Representative Scott has been a friend for a very long time. She is incredibly passionate about this issue. Every time we talk, she says something. She said, it's about the people. And candidly, that's what it's about. It's not about, Ricky Keys or anyone on this line. It's about the people. And I was really excited to meet with Tanya and some of the other folks in Chatham and Savannah while we were there. What was it, 2 or 3 weeks ago? And we had a great opportunity to discuss some serious issues that affect Chatham County, Savannah, all of those areas around that area. I'm originally from Louisiana. I moved to Texas, and now I am here. And I pulled up how they say when if you're committed to something, you'll pull up the bridges or you'll burn the bridges. I burned the bridges. I'm here, and I'm planning on staying here. I believe that Georgia is the epicenter of Black America. And I believe that there's an opportunity for us to really do some meaningful things to address some serious issues. Mr. Murray, you said that you've never heard of banking deserts, and candidly, some 5-7 years ago, while we were talking about this issue, we didn't classify it as banking deserts. So don't feel like the Lone Ranger. There's a whole lot of us who did not or do not understand this. Not only are there banking deserts, but there are health service deserts as well. And as you know, with food deserts is a community, a zip code that lacks access to fresh fruits and vegetables. And really, that's the definition of a food desert. The challenge that we have is that, typically these communities are in areas that are synonymous, that we could easily, define. They have certain demographic profiles. And traditionally, there are poor areas, there are less educated areas, they are, more Black, more unemployed. I mean, all of the demographic factors that are slightly negative. So what we decided to do is to look at where banks are available and then juxtapose that with where non-bank services like payday and title loans are. And what we found is something that's obvious. Where the banks are, those non-bank services are not, and vice versa. So what we said is, okay, there is a law called the 1977 Community Reinvestment Act, which says that banks are obligated because they receive special benefits. They receive quantitative easing, they receive capital, they receive a lot of stuff. And as a result, they are required, not asked to, they are required to reinvest in certain communities, low to moderate income communities, because they receive these benefits, because they have the ability to grow, because organic growth, putting a bank on the corner street and seeing deposits increase, and as a result, seeing shareholder value increase, those things don't happen anymore. The only way a bank can grow today is through mergers and acquisitions. And in order for you to be able to, do that, in order for you to be able to have an opportunity to merge, you have to have a good, an outstanding, a satisfactory Community Reinvestment Act rating with the FDIC, with the controller of the currency, or with the Federal Reserve. So banks have an obligation to do this, but, and you probably remember this term called redlining. That's when a bank would identify zip codes, draw a line around those zip codes, and they would not provide any mortgages or depository services or anything in those zip codes. And so what we said is, okay, why is it that, for example, a Wells Fargo, has an outstanding rating with the Community Reinvestment Act, yet in certain zip codes, they are not in those areas. And even if they're in those areas, they're not extending credit to those areas. They're not providing depository services to those areas. So what we decided, and this is where my colleagues, Representative Sandra Scott, Representative Kim Schofield, Representative Viola Davis, what we decided to do is look at the state of Georgia. We looked at every zip code, all nearly 1,000 zip codes here in the state of Georgia. And we wanted to identify, using demographic characteristics, where the banks were, where the pharmacies were, where the hospitals were, where the number of beds were, where the grocery stores were. And we identified all of this. We have this data. And what we found is that largely banks are not located in areas where they should be located based on the density of the population, based on the income of the group, based on, you know, all the LMI stuff that I've just talked about in terms of the CRA. And specifically in Chatham County, I provided some data, and you can link it later on in the show, that I'll probably be going through just kind of anecdotally, but they aren't located in areas where they should be located based on receiving certain benefits from the Federal Reserve, from the comptroller of the currency, and from other regulatory bodies. So the challenge that we have is we have to do something. Banks are not extending credit. They are not providing depository services. So what can we do to address this issue? And that's what we've been talking with the leaders in Chatham County about, right? Just over the last couple of weeks, and, you know, I believe going forward.
Uh-oh.
So my question primarily is this. You're focusing on metropolitan areas. Is that correct? Is that
no, we are not. We are focusing on every zip code in the state of Georgia. So there are approximately 950 zip codes in Georgia. So our focus is, as I said, every zip code, be they zip codes that have a densely populated community or not. We want to see the availability of credit, of banking services, of healthcare services, of, you know, any service that's existing, even educational services. So no, we're not just focused on urban areas. We're not just focused on Savannah or Macon or Fulton or Atlanta. We're focused on every zip code in every community throughout the state, and candidly throughout the country. So yes.
All right. So the banking desert pretty much is, from what I gather you're saying, is that these banks have monies available to them from the government that's not being distributed or made available to different communities, which is leaving those communities, so to speak, ignorant of the financial monies or the financial services that's available to them through the bank, whether it's a loan or what other areas would it consist of? I mean, mortgages, personal loans. What other areas would it consist of?
So every area of small business loans, depository services,
Okay.
Any service that a bank can offer, they should be extending those services to the community. But let me back up a second. We're not saying that banks get money from the federal government. Banks get special privileges. They get low interest loans from the government. They get, again, special benefits. So it's that they have access to these benefits, and as a result of having access to these benefits, under the 1977 Community Reinvestment Act, they are obligated, because they receive a benefit, they're obligated to actually extend these services to these communities that they are not literally, they're not either physically in these communities, or they're not actually providing those resources to these communities.
All right. So let me bring up a bank, and I'm just throwing it out there, okay?
Okay.
Like when we look at a large bank like Wells Fargo, all right, they're huge, all right, but they do not have a branch in Effingham County. They have a kiosk. All right, and so when you have banks like that, and they're in major areas, they're in Pooler, Georgia, they're in Savannah, Georgia. Um, they had one, and I believe it's still there in Garden City. But as far as Rankin, they have not come this far. I guess we are northwest. All right, so in these banking desert situations, is there a way that the population or the people in these desert areas could request or find out about these services that's available to them, even though they're not in those areas where those banks are that have that money available? How can people find out, in other words?
Okay, so you said an absolute mouthful. We just had a call with the leaders in Chatham. What was, I think it was day before yesterday, and we're trying to decide how we're going to move forward. And the one bank that we've decided to have some conversations with is Wells Fargo. And the reason we are planning on having this conversation is because Wells Fargo received extraordinary benefits from the federal government, yet there are lawsuits literally right now that show that Wells Fargo has not done a proper job either in an employment situation or actually in the extension of mortgages to African Americans. Attorney Benjamin Crump actually is suing Wells Fargo right now on behalf of several people who did not have access to credit, or if they did get credit, the interest rate was significantly different with the same credit and debt to income profile as another community. So the challenge is we believe that Wells Fargo is a prime and absolute amazing. I actually did a video recently on Wells Fargo just to show that this is the kind of bank that we need to have some conversations with. As a matter of fact, the regulator, the chairman of the Financial Services Committee in the Senate, actually sent a letter to Wells Fargo saying that they have to do more. But let me get to your point specifically in Chatham. You said you are absolutely on target when you say demographically or geographically where these banks are. I have a map. I have actually the locations of Wells Fargo here in front of me. There's one at 48516 Augusta Road in Garden City. There's one at 204 US Highway 80 East in Pooler. And then there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 9 in Savannah. I'm not going to give you the addresses, but in terms of any other city that you've named, any other city that you could identify in Chatham County, there are no Wells Fargo banks. So you're absolutely right in terms of geography.
So that means that there's no Wells Fargo in Richmond Hill. There's no Wells Fargo in Port Wentworth. There's no Wells Fargo in, like you said, in Effingham. So if we just look at the Chatham County areas, looking at Port Wentworth by itself, there is no Wells Fargo. I think we identified there's no bank.
Actually, there's a bank called Citizens Bank of Port Wentworth.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only bank that's in Port Wentworth. And I don't know, again, we could look at the demographics of that city itself to see what the population, the density of the population is, and the demographic profile of that population, and it'll tell us a lot. So yeah, absolutely right. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was part of my question. With the larger banks, do they target areas based on the population in those areas? Question number one. And then question number two, how do we then better engage with the smaller banks or the local banks to get them to do the same thing? And that's to work with, homeowners who meet all the qualifications, to provide those workshops, to work with small businesses, because small businesses are having a very difficult time obtaining loans. On the call the other day, we said, hey, small business can't get a loan. and a small business that's been, a new business, and businesses that have been in operation for a few years. How do we, get that right? The financial training. How do we make sure that we as a community, understand the process better? So
Okay.
is it a larger bank thing, or is it, multiple?
Let me say this. I think we're on the right track to where we will start seeing some of these things happen. First thing that one of the things that we asked the people of Savannah to do is to find out where your county and school board and where these cities house their money. Um, you all house your money in some bank. Down in the Metro Savannah area. Each county, city, they have their banks. Whether it's a
Mhm.
Wells Fargo, a Truist, a South Bank, you have your bank somewhere. So it is the coming together of elected officials to start holding these banks accountable. You're in our community. We're putting all our money into your banks. What are you going to do for the citizens of this county? And you go in and you have the conversation and you let them know this is what we expect. We are banking with you. You're not giving back to our communities. You're not helping the people within our community by giving small business loans, by investing in different programs and activities throughout our communities. All you're doing is collecting our money and drawing interest. We want to see you all do more for our communities and for the people in our communities. We're going to have to hold the banks accountable. We must hold the banks accountable. Uh, and if one won't do, another one will. You got not be afraid to take your money out of a bank and put it into another bank if they're going to work with you all as a community and give back to your community. We got to start holding these people accountable. It's been far too long. We have gone far too long with putting our money in the banks and getting nothing from the banks for our communities. And as elected officials, it is our time. It is our time to hold banks accountable for our people in our districts and in our communities to get the
All right,
banks
now
to
let
for
me
our
ask you a
people.
question, State Representative Scott. How how do we hold the banks accountable? What actions do we take? Now, we could pull our money out, all right, but the average person in the community that take the money out of the bank is not significant, all right, the average person, all right. So what is there that the average person could do? Now I know if you get a group of average people and they take their $1,000, 5,000 or $10,000 out of that bank, then there's an impact, then there's a statement made. But what else is there that people could do, or that you as a representative could do, to hold uh, these
The
banks
banks account.
and,
That's
and accountable?
your county leaders. I don't know how much money Chatham County gets, but I know, think about the city of Port Wentworth. I think they have $32 million that they get in. That $32 million make a difference if they go pull their money out of the bank. And if the counties and the cities all come together and join together as a united front and a united force, I, I promise you, it will start. You will be able to see a difference and you will get some attention. It's going to take all the people in the leadership roles in your county and city and school board government to come together and start holding these banks accountable. And when they start holding the banks accountable, it will work down throughout the community where the community will start seeing the difference. It's about your local government doing their part so that it will benefit and trickle down into community where the community people that live in these communities will start to see a difference. And when they go into the bank to get a loan, title funds, title loans, and all of that. We know the interest rate that people pay to get those loans. Why not the banks give them to our people? When we're talking about mortgages and home ownership, I want you to think about a person that been renting just that for the last 3 years, and they pay upwards of $1,200, $1,500 a month to rent a place. We know that if you purchase a home, your rent will not be that high, all according to the home that you purchased today. These people been paying rent. They have not been late. They still have a car note. They still have water, utility, and gas to pay. They still paying their credit cards. They doing everything right. So why can't they own a home and still receive the same benefits? You can't say that they can't afford it because they've been paying it for the last 3 years and they have not been late. They have not missed payments. So how can you say that they don't qualify for a home when they've been doing this for the last 3 to 5 years and have not been late and still been able to live and live life free and abundantly? So therefore, you have to question the method and the way that the banks are giving out their loans.
Because you have to meet basically the same qualifications to rent. You have to have a certain income requirement to be able to rent. You have to have an established employment to be able to rent. They're checking your credit score to be able to rent. So you're absolutely right. So if people meet those qualifications that are basically the same to rent, and you have mortgage companies that do rental applications and things like that. So we're meeting those requirements. Then you're absolutely right. How is it that we don't meet those same requirements when we're trying to get a mortgage loan?
See, one of the challenges that I think we have is that, often we don't know. And when people don't believe that we know, then they take advantage of people who they feel don't know. And especially if you have resources, or you could use resources for one purpose to build wealth, buy a home and build wealth, or use resources for another purpose to rent and to feather someone else's cap. So one of the biggest challenges that I feel we have is we have to be quantitative. We could be passionate and emotional and really, and that's where we are. We have done this for a very long time where we've gone to the floor, we've gone to the mat over these issues, and I think that's what we bring to the table. We are really interested in getting these things done. The other, and I believe, new approach that we need to take is that we need to be quantitative. We need to use data. We need to use maps. We need to show people that we know. They won't believe that we know until we show them that we have the data to prove that we know. So a perfect example. So Wells Fargo received an outstanding rating with the CRA. There are 3 tests that Wells Fargo has to employ, or they have to pass in order to have this outstanding rating. They have to pass a lending test, the service test, and an investment test. And they have an outstanding rating. Now, again, I don't understand this. They're being sued by Benjamin Crump for extending credit at a higher interest rate to African Americans than whites who have the same credit profile and have the same debt to income ratio and have the same characteristics as you said, but yet at the same time, the interest rates that they're charging African Americans is higher. So I don't understand how you would have an outstanding rating on that portion of the CRA score, but you have a satisfactory rating on the investment and the service test. And again, we can go into the investment and service test. Representative Scott was talking about making sure that you educate the community. That's the service test. The investment test is how much are you investing, not in terms of mortgages or those kinds of things, but how much are you investing? How much money are you extending to other banks or to financial service organizations to improve that community? That's the investment test. So again, you receive satisfactory ratings on the service and investment test, but you receive an outstanding rating on the lending test, and you're being sued for your lending practices. It just doesn't make any sense. And we have the data to show the maps, not only the data, we have correlations, we have all of this data to show that what they're doing is not in alignment with, number one, with the interest in the letter of the law, the 1977 Community Reinvestment Act. And just like Representative Scott said, we have to do what must be done. It turns out that Wells Fargo is a bank for both the city of Savannah and the county of Chatham. It doesn't make any sense for you to support an organization that is not supporting our community. So what we need to do is have a conversation with them, say that, okay, you've received an outstanding rating on your CRA. That's number one. Number two, you are not physically invested, as you said, Anthony, in areas where African Americans are. And then number three, how is it that we can work with you to ensure that all of us have access to the resources, not only the banking services, the depository services, but also the mortgages and the small business loans. I mean, this is not just about deposits. This is about small business loans. This is about mortgages as well. So it's the entire, panoply, if you will, the entire framework of what it is that needs to be done in order for our community to be, capital is one of the most important ways that you can increase or develop wealth. If you have access to resources, a home, unfortunately, in the state of Georgia and throughout this country, during the housing crash, one of the biggest challenges that we had is that we lost the African American community in particular. We lost so much money, so much of our wealth, because we had we use these exogenous lending services or products, and as a result, we lost a significant amount of our wealth because a lot of people foreclosed on their properties.
Yeah.
And now we have to rebuild that, but we don't have the tools, Wells Fargo, to help us to do that. So again, these are the kinds of things, using data, using passion, using the resources that are available at our disposal, Chatham County and Savannah, who are banking. And again, we've spoken with the mayor, and we're actually having real serious conversations about how we move forward.
So one of the other organizations that we need to add to our list is ILA. Terrell put up something a few minutes ago in reference to the International Longshoremen Association. We need to find out who they bank with also, because that's a huge organization with lots of people that work for them, and they make good money working as longshoremen also. So we'll definitely get back and have who are they banking with in the Savannah area. So we'll be sure to come back with that.
Actually, once you find that out, once you find that out, it's gonna be coming upon you all to get together and have a seat at the table and come up with a plan of action where when you all go, and one day when you all go and you have the conversation with the banks and you talk with the banking lenders, you all get with Representative Gilliard, who is all into this and ready for solutions and see Savannah move forward and taking this thing forward and start making a difference for the people of Savannah. I believe within my heart that you all will get results, because when you go into the door, once you all have come up with your plan of action and attack, and you have that meeting, when y'all go and sit down at the meeting, you all will be armed with everything you need. You'll be able to have the data, to lay the data out on the table. And one thing about data, you can't lie.
You can't deny.
When you have that data and you lay it out on that table, they're going to know that these people are coming in here and they mean business. So they're going to have to get their act together. They're going to have to start showing you all, because you're going to give them a time frame and you're going to give them a deadline when you want to see things happen. And you all going to become a community that working together to make a difference in your people of Chatham County throughout. And I believe that you all will see a difference will be made, and the people will know that a change have come in Chatham County, where that they will be able to start buying homes, start getting small business loans. People will be able to go in and get a personal loan and do the things that they need to do in order to make their families feel secure, make them secure, and that they can now start rebuilding their wealth. Because our home is our wealth, and we should have more people buying homes than renting homes. So we have to change that market. We have to change that standard, because we have people that are fully qualified to be buying a home than renting a home. And we got to make that change. And we got to make sure that our small businesses are able to stand and able to hire more people and do what they need to do so that they can become a successful small business without having to worry.
Can I make one more statement? I think we both missed an opportunity. Representative Carl Gilliard, it has been absolutely phenomenal. I mean, he has been all over this, and I will take responsibility for not mentioning him earlier. He has been an absolute champion. The first conversations that Representative Schofield and Davis and Scott had me on with the Black Caucus, he raised his hand immediately and said, "Look, we need to bring this to Chatham County. We need to make sure that my people in Chatham understand that we have some challenges that we have to address." So again, I should have said his name at least 15 times by now, because he's absolutely amazing. The other thing is, so there is the lending side of this equation, where we are seeking access to mortgages and depository services. There are two other sides that we really need to pay attention to. That's the service side. And we're not talking about funding Little League baseball teams. And again, I think that's an important thing. But we need to look at financial education. We need to look at how do we educate our younger people and older people about banking services, about credit, about debt to income, mortgages, home ownership, insurance, the industry that you are in right now. We need to have a meaningful discussion about how do you provide services, because that's a part of the CRA rating. And if we have this data to show them that they're not meeting that obligation. And the other thing is the investment. So what we want to do is we want to be armed with data. We have the maps, but then we have the CRA requirements at our disposal as well, to say, okay, are you meeting the lending standard? Are you meeting the service standard? Are you meeting the investment standard? So again, I think we will have a phenomenal opportunity to make some things happen.
Dr. Keys, I can bring up any of your maps on the screen if there's anything that you want to specifically talk about.
Well, I mean, if you could do the banking map, I could show, okay. Why don't you? I mean, well, the African American, because Chatham is so largely African American, it is really hard for us to have a meaningful conversation about density of population by African American status. However, if you can go to median income, that'll show you that banks are not invested in. And actually, I think this would be a good series of maps to extend to to the general public, so they could see where the entire community is. But again, what it will show you is by demographic profile where the banks are, where the pharmacies are, and where the grocery stores are, and we go through just tons and tons of data of demographic factors, from age to race to insurance status. I mean, just tons and tons of data. I mean, it would take me at least 3 hours to go through each of these maps, but if you look at that, you'd see that we're not just basing this off of emotion or how we feel, or going into a community saying we don't see these things. We are literally showing by maps that these resources are not available in certain communities.
So question, you're saying we start with our with our leaders in our community. Do you suggest that, that we start attending community meetings, the city meetings, the county meetings? What are some ways that we can engage with the leaders in the community to let them know that we want to see change, that we want them to go into these banks and to fight for change for us in the community?
So I really believe, and again, Representative Scott, if you want to answer first, I'll do the
Well,
cleanup if you like.
well, first of all, what I would like to see happen is that the elected officials, and I think Carl is working on it, where he's going to gather a meeting with the elected officials, the ones that have attended the meeting, and others that would like to join. First, to have a conversation with all of you all, where you all could talk about what it is that you all want to see, what it is. Y'all gonna come up with a plan. Gonna come up with a plan of action. Then it'll be incumbent upon you all to get your someone said the churches and all of your churches and your nonprofit organizations, your small businesses, and all your people. Then you go out and you talk to that community of people. Then once you have spoken with all of them, then you go out to your constituents and talk to them. So let it trickle down. Let it trickle down, like you're playing the chain of command. But first, the leaders deal with it, because you all must come up with a plan of action, how you all are going to address it. And once you all do all that, and Dr. Keys is going to arm you with the maps and the data that you need. So when you go forward and you're ready to go in and sit down and have that conversation with your banks, that you all will have the data, and you will have the maps, and you will have all the materials that you need to make your case. But it's going to take you all a couple of days and stuff to get it all together, or maybe longer. It all depends on how you all going to work it out. But Representative Gilliard, he's going to be the spearhead for Chatham County. He's going to be the go-to person that you all will communicate. And as he need us, if he need us to come in, or need for us to come back to Savannah, then we will do so. But I think that you all have been equipped with all of the tools and things that you all need to go forward and come together as a group and make this happen. Because one thing about us, you all know that as elected officials, it is difficult for all us to come together on a single cause. And everybody not going to come to the table. You must understand that. Everyone will not come to the table. But the ones that are willing to go to the table, you all must go to the table to make your case. Because we all know that in politics, we all not going to agree, but we got to learn to agree to disagree. And we got to learn, when we in it, and we in it for the people, then sometimes we're going to have to go to the table, whether we want to go because we want to go or not, because we are doing what is right for the citizens and for the people that we serve. Because we have to understand that it is not about us. It is about the people that we serve. And when you're doing right for the people, then everything else, I believe in my heart, it will come to pass. So when you all connect and join together as a group of elected officials that are willing and ready to take on these financial institutions, and you arm your small businesses, and you arm your churches and your Greek organization, and all the people that need to be armed, and you all go in and stand together as a united front, I promise you, you will see change. You will see change.
One of the other things, and I agree with everything that Representative Scott just said, but I believe that we're not just going to walk away and just say, okay, we gave you this, and we're done with this point, and we're going to move on to another place. We are actually planning on being actively involved in helping to address this. And I've been doing this for 20 some odd years now, so I know, all the lingo. I know, funny thing, Representative Scott, myself, Kim Schofield, and Viola Davis, we had a meeting with the Bankers Association, and traditionally they would have thought that they could just have, you know, a large bank on the phone and they could talk about tout the things that they've done, and they'll just, you know, move us on and say, okay, thank you very much for coming. We can handle this from here. So when we had our opportunity to talk, in addition to having the data to prove everything that we were saying, we showed them that we knew what we were talking about. We talked about the Community Reinvestment Act. We talked about, you know, Ben Bernanke and all the stuff that he did in terms of quantitative easing and, you know, and helping, you know, to get the banks out of a very bad situation after the financial crisis. So we were armed with data and information. And after we finished that conversation, they came back and they said, well, okay, we see that we're dealing with a different group of people here. So what we believe is that we need to play a role. Obviously, we want to do this throughout the state of Georgia, so we can't just, you know, stay in Chatham County forever, but we really want to make sure that we get you off on a good start and help in every way that we can. So Representative Gilliard is actually developing, you know, a subgroup that we could start to having some conversations. We could talk about some things that need to be done. We could put the data together. We could put a plan together. And then invariably, we could present that to every bank, not just Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Ameris, Bank South. Actually, we met with Carver State Bank. And again, they were interested in having some meaningful conversations about how they could do more. I mean, again, we can go down the line, a list of banks that are in Chatham, Truist Bank, Synovus. I mean, so we are prepared to meet with each of these banks individually. And let me not be remiss in not saying South State Bank, because South State Bank, in my opinion, and in Carl's opinion, they've been very active in the community. So we have no problem with actually engaging based on data, based on facts, not based on, you know, anything else. So we are planning on helping to develop the plan and then carrying that plan forward.
All right, so I have a question for you. First, Dr. Keys, where are you out of? Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then State Representative Scott, tell us a little bit about yourself. If you're in Savannah or Effingham, or if you're in Atlanta, say I'm in Effingham. So I don't know what's going on that much in Savannah. So tell us a little bit about yourself, because we jump right into it.
Can we do it the opposite way? I'm going to let my learned colleague go first.
Well,
I'm going to let her go first.
Well, I'm State Representative Sandra G. Scott, and I serve District 76 out of Clayton and Henry County. I've been living here in the metro area now for about 24 years. I come here by way of the United States Army. My husband did 24 years, and I did 5 years in the United States. I am Army. I am originally from Tallahassee, Florida, by way of Havana, Florida. I have a home as of today, right now. I have a home in Richmond Hill, Georgia. We were stationed at Hunter Army and Fort Stewart. We were stationed there I think we stayed there for about 5 years before we left and went to Korea. And then when we left Korea, we came here to the metro area and been here ever since. So I've been around Savannah. Like I said, I lived down in that area for about 5 or 6 years before leaving, going to Savannah, and still have my home there. So in Richmond Hill, out in Petersfield Forest. So I'm sure that you all know about Richmond Hill, Bryan County, and so that's my roots down in that area. And I always say one day I'm gonna move back so I could go fishing. Once I think about it. So I am familiar with the Effinghams and all of those little small areas around Savannah. So that is who I am, and that is where I come from. Again, I've been in the General Assembly for 12 years, going into my 13th year.
Well, I'll try. If you don't mind, I'm going to hit the highlights. I'm from New Orleans. I I graduated from Southern University and with a degree in economics. I went to Tulane University and got a master's in public health. And ultimately, I got a PhD from Tulane in health policy and marketing. I've worked in financial services and the health services for some time now. I've worked with the National Black Caucus of State Legislators as an advisor, as a consultant for a long time. My primary focus has been on African Americans, specifically African American women and African American young folks. So I've worked with Nobel Women. Nobel is the National Organization of Black Elected Legislative Women. I founded an organization called the Equitable Growth Fund. EGF is a 501c nonprofit organization that's focused on investing in areas that have a lack of resources. So our primary focus are two things. One, zip codes, because we want to identify access to specific, both access and availability to different things, to different resources that make one community healthy and one community less healthy. So it's about zip codes and it's about access to these specific resources that will allow one community to grow versus another. I got my motivation from a hospital that left our community in New Orleans. It was called Dillard. Well, Dillard University, but the hospital is called Flint Goodrich. Flint Goodrich was a hospital in the project where I live, but they left because, in hospital terminology, you have to have a certificate of need. You have to have a demand for these services, a specific number of beds for the entire community. And they left, and they coincidentally went from one of the poorest areas to one of the richest areas, leaving that area in my community a hospital desert. So this has been something that has been a passion of mine for, as long as I've been alive, 54 years. So again, that's my story. One of the most important things is I'm a member of Omega Sci-Fi. That's
all right. Well, we're not going to go there. I'm not a member of any.
And I'm a passionate New Orleans Saints fan, so those are two important things.
Well, since he went there, I am a FAMU Rattler, Florida A&M.
Oh Lord.
Oh my goodness! Here we go.
Right. I don't know why we got to do this.
Hey, look, you guys are really, adding some seasoning to our pot right here, and this is a grassroots type thing here that we've started. Financial Sense. We need to educate the community. You see, reaching out to the government institutes, reaching out to the banking institutes, before these banking organizations become government owned completely. We need to be able to have a voice to say to them, hey, we need these services available in this area, not just in the metropolitan, but in the rural. We need to go see where I am right now. I'm in Effingham. And one of the things I've noticed in Effingham, in Port Wentworth, a lot of warehouse logistics opening up all over the place. So that means land is leaving and buildings are coming. Jobs are being made available. However, what about minority-owned businesses? Still lacking. All right, still lacking. Minority-owned commercial property, still lacking. If these monies are available to help people invest or get into this area of commerce, then people need to know about it.
Absolutely.
I love this topic today. I'm not sure which one of my colleagues instituted it or brought it about. I'm so glad. I work with some of the best people there is. Tanya and Ronette. I tell you what, these ladies are phenomenal. We have one young lady that's missing today, Her name is Mad Flo. There's 4 of us, and our objective is to inform the public, get people involved. We need you to tell us how to get these people involved from the grassroots, starting from, because everything starts from the ground up. All right. It doesn't start from the roof. It starts from the ground. We got to lay the foundation, and we've got to get people involved. Tell us what to do.
Well, I think they've given us really some, starting with our elected officials and some good information. It sounds like this is probably, there's going to be a part 2 to this,
Yeah, because it's 2 o'clock.
Check-ins. Yeah, we're going to have check-ins and a part 2, continue this conversation. And you are absolutely right, Anthony. Our time is up, but we want to say thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Keys. Thank you so much, Representative Scott, for joining our show. This has been a phenomenal show to inform our community. As always, in closing, I say, make it a great day.
And, continue to live life like there is no tomorrow.
My name is Anthony Murray. I want to thank you guys for being with us today at Financial Sense. Tanya, back to you.
All right. We have a good one. See you all next Friday. Thank you.
Thank you all for the
Stay back.
opportunity.
We'd like to thank our guests for being with us. God bless you.
You all stay there. Hold tight.
Like this.